Grief. If the past year has taught me anything, it's that however divided we may be, whether by race, social class,
where the virus has returned at such speed it has far outpaced this country's ability to cope,
or financial income, I'm looking at you, Bezos, there will always be one thing that unites us all, and that is grief. It's a feeling that many, if not all of us, have to overcome one day, and in a way, some could make the claim that it's an inevitability that comes with being human. No matter the cause, oftentimes grief is tied with a loss, or, in other words, a death. And while it doesn't have to be strictly tied with death in order to make itself apparent, it can have a major impact on how we deal with our day-to-day lives. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines grief as The Urban Dictionary defines grief as a profound mental anguish that one feels when one loses a loved one, often accompanied with feelings of sorrow, regret, anger, guilt, and feeling very lonely. Put simply, grief occurs when you lose someone close to you, though it should be noted that the manner of which they leave your life doesn't always have to be death. Whether a close friend moves away, or you drift apart from someone as the years go on, grief makes itself apparent in many forms. And this begs the question, why does it hurt us to change? Well, to answer this, we have to look at grief, and I feel that in a voiceless medium, none captures the feeling of grief better than a simple waltz from a game named OMORI, fittingly titled The Final Duet. Now, before I start, while it isn't necessary to understand this video, as most of it will pull from the music alone, I highly recommend you play OMORI, or watch someone play OMORI before I move forward. This is not only to have some background, but also so you can enjoy the game fully. I feel that it can have a lasting impact, and to have the game spoiled for those who wish to experience it for themselves would truly be a travesty. But with that out of the way, on with the video. To find the significance of the Final Duet, we must look at the context in which it's played in. At the end of the game, when Sonny, a teenager suffering from dissociative amnesia, rediscovers the truth behind his sister's death, he has to face himself, or rather, his alter ego, OMORI. It's through OMORI, created by Sonny to cope with his sister's passing and the subsequent fallout of his friends, Sonny would spend his time living vicariously in a world where neither were an issue, all taking place in his head during his sleep. In it, Mari's still alive, as well as his friends, who still remain in contact. However, once Sonny overcomes OMORI, he's finally allowed to begin healing. At this point, the Final Duet fades in over various memories of both Mari and himself, and as the time-lapse continues, not only does his friend group grow, but the memories they've shared begin to set into place once more. However, one thing to note is the shift in the music itself, and it's this attention to detail that makes this piece so transcendent. Upon the start of the song, we're shown an image of both Mari and Sonny, who play the piano and violin respectively. Curiously though, the majority of the start consists of piano, and while I'm by no means an expert in music, hell, the only instrument I own is a kazoo, yeah, scratch that, I lost it. What I do know is literature, and when something associated to one person and one person only appears, it's usually done on purpose to convey a sense of symbolism and to draw a parallel between the two. Take a listen. In this piece, the piano is played to convey a sense of childlike wonder and innocence, with the introduction of the violin meant to directly contrast that, as it only fades in when both Sonny and Mari are asleep. This shows that the violin represents a much more elegant, relaxed role, whereas the piano is much more lively and jubilant. However, in my opinion, the best and most moving part of the Final Duet takes place in the middle of the song. The imagery shown is Sonny having fallen into a lake. Unable to swim, Mari jumps in after him. Both the piano and the violin play a major role here, and play in conjunction with one another, almost as if they're having a conversation. Sonny, the violin, is in danger, and while slowly losing hope, he shouts out in a desperate plea for someone to save him. Mari, the piano, who's only been shown before to be innocent, almost childlike in nature, quickly and without hesitation jumps in to save her brother, an act which is reflected in the music as the piano becomes much more elegant, almost as if maturing immediately on the spot, with the previous nature fading upon the former coming into any contact with harm. And it's this that makes the Final Duet what it is, the bond between brother and sister, the love that they share for one another. And then, well, before I get into that, take a listen. I feel that the way the piano and the violin interact shows the kind of unconditional love that siblings can have for one another. Merely the thought of losing a person so close to you can be devastating, and it doesn't matter if they're family or friend, dead or alive, just the thought of losing them can be horrifying. And this is what we see happen immediately after Mari resurfaces with Sunny in tow. The violin coming down from a high-pitched cry for help, back to a normal pressure as it slowly eased with each successive note of the piano. And not only does she have a smile of relief, but she immediately embraces him, showing the love that she shares for her brother, only to have their time cut short with a smash cut to OMORI, sitting alone without anyone to comfort him, the piano cutting out shortly after. Finally, the piece ends soon after with a handful of images depicting what appear to be a church window, a once shared closet now only half full, followed by Mari lying in the grass, eyes closed, surrounded by flowers, presumably in her final resting place before being buried. All the while, the piano slowly gets fainter and fainter, with less influence upon the violin, until finally, the song ends. This is why the song is titled the way it is. The final duet shows the life story of a boy who's so racked with grief over the loss of his sister that all he can do is reminisce over the time that they spent with one another before her own story was cut short. The final duet is the final story which a brother and sister share before one must accept the other's passing. With her death, innocence and childlike wonder is gone, only leaving behind a stoic, somber instrument. This is why the final duet hits so hard. It's why it's a song so acclaimed that many who've never even played the game before can easily be left feeling moved, touched even. It encapsulates grief in its fullest form, from a happy start to the dramatic in-between to finally a rather grim ending. Oftentimes, I find myself listening to the final duet and I easily feel moved each and every time. The middle section gets me the most because it's like you're calling out desperately, trying to grasp a hold of something you feel a primal urge to continue pursuing, and you go and go and go and you can never quite reach it on your own no matter how hard you may try. Much like the boy in the story, Sunny, someone who loved his sister so much suddenly has his whole world uprooted, and like that, he's permanently confined to loneliness. And like Sunny, you may try to grasp at that ideal sliver of a memory that you may hold on to, but which ultimately leads us to the initial answer to our question. Why does it hurt us to change and lose the ones we love? It hurts because it's not what we want. We always find ourselves in the moment hoping that things will never change, repeating the mantra over and over.
That nothing can ever ruin this, and nothing can ever ruin this.
And by getting into that mindset, we allow ourselves to become vulnerable to pain, and that's okay. It's alright to hurt, and to feel lonely like Sunny does. When a loved one leaves your life, regardless of the manner in which they did so, it's always okay to hurt. That's the true majesty of the final duet. It answers the question of why it hurts us to change. Like, why does it hurt to grieve? And so finally, why does it hurt to grieve? Because it's something that we're not used to. It's human nature to find our comfort level and to refuse to leave that, but when we have no choice, we do everything in our power to avoid the inevitable. But like Sunny during the final duet sequence, always know that you will forever have the memories of them with you. You'll always carry those as you go along, and that's why it hurts us to change, because it forces us out of our comfort level. To all of you watching this video, if you've ever lost a loved one, if you feel like you're alone, you're never alone. And there are many people who love you, and if you don't feel that way, then go to the comment section, and I'm sure there's others who are hurting that you can support, or they can support you, and I promise you that you're never alone, because you'll always have yourself to love, at the very least. So thank you for watching. Here's a graph for those that like to stay a while, and subscribe if you'd like. I'd love to have you. Goodbye.